The silent protocol. The stars disappeared first. Captain Maria Okonkwo of the International Space Station noticed it during her routine observation shift. One moment, the constellation Orion hung clear and bright against the cosmic darkness. The next, a shadow swallowed it whole, a shadow that moved with purpose, blotting out starlight sector by sector as it approached. "Houston, we have—" "I don't know what we have," she whispered into her headset, her Nigerian accent thickening with fear. "Something massive just entered the solar system. It's blocking out entire star fields." The response came 3 seconds later, clipped and tight. "ISS, this is Houston. We see it. Stay calm. Maintain your position. Do not, I repeat, do not attempt any maneuvers." Maria's hands gripped the observation port frame until her knuckles went white. Through the reinforced glass, she watched the darkness grow. Then slowly, running lights began to appear. Thousands of them, arranged in geometric patterns that hurt to look at. Ships. Hundreds of ships. Each one so large it made Earth's greatest aircraft carriers look like toys in a bathtub. Down on Earth, every telescope, every satellite, every backyard astronomer's equipment suddenly pointed at the same piece of sky. Social media exploded. News networks interrupted their programming. In living rooms across 7 continents, families gathered around screens, watching humanity's worst fear materialize in real time. The fleet stopped at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. 200 warships, arranged in a formation that suggested both military precision and casual dominance. They simply hung there, waiting, as if daring humanity to respond. Then came the message. It bypassed every encryption protocol, every security measure, every firewall humanity had ever designed. It appeared simultaneously on every screen connected to the internet. Every military display, every smartphone, every digital billboard in every city on Earth. The face that materialized was nightmare fuel. Angular features covered in iridescent scales, 3 eyes arranged vertically down the center of an elongated skull, and a mouth that split horizontally into 4 separate sections when it spoke. "Primitive creatures of the 3rd planet," the being said, its voice a harmonious blend of multiple tones that shouldn't have been possible from a single throat. "I am Supreme Commander Zarthok of the Vorthok Empire. Your solar system now belongs to us. Your resistance would be amusing but ultimately pointless." Zarthok's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture that somehow conveyed infinite contempt. "We have cataloged your capabilities: chemical propulsion, primitive nuclear fission, electromagnetic communication still bound by light speed limitations. You are children playing with fire, unaware that you live in a forest filled with dragons." The alien's mouth parts twisted into something that might have been a smile. "You have 48 of your hours to evacuate your major population centers. After that, we will demonstrate why 47 civilizations before you chose submission over annihilation. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Silence blanketed the planet for exactly 4 seconds. Then the screaming started. 3 kilometers beneath Cheyenne Mountain, in a facility that appeared on no official government records, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the Vorthak transmission with an expression of calculated calm that unnerved everyone around her. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a practical ponytail. Her colleagues at DARPA's Ghost Division often joked that she looked more like someone's grandmother than the director of humanity's most classified defense program. Sarah never found those jokes funny. Grandmothers, she knew, were some of the most dangerous people on Earth when their families were threatened. "Replay it," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the panicked chatter of the command center. "Focus on the ship signatures. I want energy output readings, hull composition analysis, and propulsion signatures." Lieutenant James Park, her chief analyst, worked his console with shaking hands. "Dr. Chen, with all respect, what does it matter? Did you see those ships? Each one is 15 kilometers long. Their smallest frigate could probably glass an entire continent." Sarah turned to face him, her dark eyes hard as obsidian. "Lieutenant, how long have you been with Ghost Division?" 3 years, ma'am." "Then you should know by now that we don't panic. We calculate, we plan, and we execute." She stepped closer to his console, her finger tapping the screen where one of the Vorthak warships rotated in 3-dimensional analysis. "They made a mistake, Lieutenant." "Do you see it?" Park squinted at the display, then shook his head. "I don't understand." "Their shields are down," Sarah said, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. They entered our solar system with their shields completely deactivated. Why would they do that? Because they don't think we're a threat, said a voice from the entrance. Everyone turned. General Marcus Webb stood in the doorway, his 4-star uniform crisp despite the crisis, his weathered African-American face carved into an expression of grim determination. He'd been the Joint Chiefs representative to Ghost Division for 20 years, one of only 12 people on Earth who knew the full scope of what Sarah's team had built. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. They're arrogant. They've won so many times that they've forgotten to be careful. That arrogance is going to kill them. Webb descended the metal stairs into the command center, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Status report, Director Chen. Is Project Phantom operational? Sarah pulled up a holographic display that filled the center of the room. It showed Earth surrounded by layers of icons, hundreds of them, scattered throughout near-Earth space, the lunar surface, and in deep ocean trenches across the planet. We've been operational for 6 years, General. Every installation is online. Every quantum disruptor is charged and synchronized. The global network is running at 98% efficiency. She zoomed in on the lunar surface where 50 icons clustered around the dark side. The moon-based units have the highest output. They'll handle the primary strike wave. Casualties? Webb asked, his jaw tight. Ours? 0. We're not sending a single human into combat range. Sarah's expression hardened. Theirs? Total. If we activate the protocol, nothing in that fleet survives. Not a ship, not a fighter, not a lifeboat. Complete molecular disintegration across the entire formation. Lieutenant Park found his voice again, though it cracked slightly. Dr. Chen, you're talking about killing how many? Millions? Billions? Sarah met his gaze without flinching. The Vorthak just threatened to exterminate 7 billion human beings, Lieutenant. They promised to turn our cities to glass. They called us primitive children, unworthy of existence. She gestured to the display showing the alien fleet. I'm talking about making sure they never threaten another civilization again. This isn't murder. This is pest control. Webb cleared his throat. The President is convening the Security Council in 15 minutes. They'll need a briefing, Sarah. The whole truth this time. No more compartmentalization. If we're pulling the trigger on Phantom, every world leader needs to understand what we've been hiding. Hiding? Park asked. Sir, I don't understand. How did we build this? How long has this technology existed? Sarah and Webb exchanged a glance. Finally, Sarah nodded. Lieutenant, what I'm about to tell you is classified above top secret. The penalty for unauthorized disclosure is life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Do you understand? Park swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. Sarah manipulated the holographic display and a timeline appeared. It stretched back decades. In 1985, a Soviet deep space tracking station in Kazakhstan detected something unusual. An asteroid on a collision course with Earth. Except it wasn't an asteroid. It was a derelict alien ship, not Vorthak, something much older. The Soviets recovered it before it burned up in atmosphere. They managed to extract exactly 3 pieces of intact technology before the ship's failsafes activated and reduced the rest to slag. She pulled up schematics that looked like someone had drawn them while hallucinating. The technology was so far beyond our understanding that it took 18 years just to figure out what we were looking at. Quantum entanglement weaponry, not the theoretical kind we'd been playing with in laboratories. Actual functional weapons that could target matter at the subatomic level and simply erase it. Make it cease to exist by severing the quantum bonds that hold atoms together. Jesus, Park breathed. After the Soviet Union collapsed, the technology disappeared into black market channels. The CIA recovered 2 of the 3 pieces in 2003. The Chinese had the 3rd, and they traded it to us in 2008 in exchange for debt forgiveness they'll never publicly admit to receiving. Sarah's expression turned distant, remembering, I was brought into the program in 2010. My team's mission was simple: reverse engineer the technology, weaponize it and deploy it globally before any potential alien threat could find us. But why the secrecy? Park asked. Why not tell the world we had this capability? General Webb answered that one. Because, Lieutenant, the best defense is one your enemy doesn't know exists. If word had gotten out that Earth possessed weapons capable of molecular disintegration, every hostile power in the galaxy would have considered us a threat. We'd have painted a target on our entire species. So we hid, Sarah continued. We built the installations in secret, disguised them as weather satellites, oceanographic research stations, lunar mining operations. We created a defense network that looked like the scattered infrastructure of a species barely capable of leaving its own planet. And we waited. She returned to the current display, showing the Vorthak fleet in all its terrible glory. The Vorthak think we're defenseless. They think they're about to conquer another primitive world, add another trophy to their collection of extinct civilizations. They have no idea they just walked into the most sophisticated kill box in this sector of the galaxy. When do we fire? Webb asked. Sarah checked her chronometer. Optimal firing solution occurs when they cross lunar orbit. Based on their current approach speed, that gives us 36 hours. They want to give us time to panic, time to despair, time to break. Instead, we're going to use that time to make absolutely certain we don't miss. She pulled up another display, this one showing communication intercepts. We've been monitoring their internal fleet communications. They're not even encrypting properly. That's how little they think of us. Their Supreme Commander is planning to broadcast our extinction live across their empire, a lesson to other worlds about the cost of defiance. Then let's teach them a lesson instead, Webb said grimly. How many people need to be read into the operation? Minimum? 20, maximum? 50? Everyone in this room, plus the skeleton crews at each installation. No one else needs to know until after it's done. Sarah's voice dropped to almost a whisper. General, when we fire, 200 ships and everyone aboard them will cease to exist in less than 4 minutes. There won't be debris. There won't be survivors. There won't be evidence they ever existed except for sensor logs and video footage. The galaxy is going to wake up one morning and discover that an entire Vorthak armada just vanished. Good, Webb said flatly. Let them wonder. Let them fear. Maybe the next empire that considers attacking Earth will think twice. Sarah nodded slowly, then turned back to her team. All stations, this is Director Chen, initiate silent protocol. Authorization code Phantom Alpha 97 Zulu. All systems to standby. Targeting solutions to be uploaded in T-minus 35 hours. This is not a drill. We are going to war. Across the command center, consoles chirped to life. Status indicators turned from amber to green. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in the Marianas Trench, massive installations that had been disguised as hydrothermal research stations began drawing power from Earth's geothermal core. On the far side of the moon, within craters that had remained dark for billions of years, weapon systems emerged from underground bunkers and turned their sensors toward the approaching fleet. In geosynchronous orbit above Earth, 73 objects that had been catalogued as defunct telecommunications satellites suddenly activated, their true nature revealed. Each one was a quantum disruptor node, capable of targeting matter within a 3,000-kilometer radius and erasing it from existence. The trap was set. Humanity, the species the Vorthak had dismissed as primitive children, was about to remind the galaxy of an ancient truth. The most dangerous predators are the ones you never see coming. Supreme Commander Zarthok stood on the bridge of his flagship, Eternal Dominion, watching the small blue world grow larger in his view screen. He felt nothing but satisfaction. Tomorrow this planet would be ash. Tomorrow his name would be added to the imperial roll of conquerors. Tomorrow the Vorthak Empire would claim another victory in its glorious march across the stars. He had no idea that he had less than 36 hours to live, and that when death came for him and his fleet, it would arrive in complete silence faster than thought, more final than anything his empire had ever imagined. The humans weren't going to fight back. They were going to erase him. Erasure, 28 hours remained. Across Earth, the evacuation orders had created the largest mass migration in human history. Cities emptied in chaotic waves, highways choked with vehicles, airports overwhelmed, trains packed beyond capacity. Governments had issued the orders to move populations away from major urban centers, maintaining the illusion of helplessness. The Vorthak were watching, and they needed to see humanity behaving exactly like every other terrified civilization they'd conquered. In the Situation Room beneath the White House, President Elizabeth Hammond sat surrounded by world leaders on secure video feeds. Her silver hair was perfectly styled despite the circumstances, her expression carved from stone. She'd been briefed on Project Phantom 2 hours ago, and the weight of what was about to happen showed in the tension around her eyes. Dr. Chen, she said, her voice steady, walk us through this one more time. I need to understand exactly what we're about to unleash. On the main screen, Sarah Chen stood in Ghost Division's command center, surrounded by holographic displays. Madam President, the quantum disruptor network operates on principles that took us 40 years to understand, and another 15 to weaponize. In simple terms, we're targeting the quantum entanglement that holds atoms together at the subatomic level. She manipulated the display, showing a molecular diagram. Every atom in the universe is connected to every other atom through quantum fields. It's the fundamental fabric of reality. Our disruptors can sever those connections within a targeted area. When we fire, the matter inside the targeting zone doesn't explode. It doesn't burn. It simply stops being matter. The atoms lose cohesion and dissolve into quantum foam. Essentially, they return to the state matter existed in during the first microseconds after the Big Bang. The Russian premier, Dmitry Volkov, leaned forward on his video feed. And there is no defense against this? No shielding? None that we're aware of, Sarah confirmed. Shields work by deflecting or absorbing energy. This isn't an energy weapon. We're not hitting them with anything. We're fundamentally altering the quantum state of the matter that comprises their ships. By the time their sensors detect what's happening, the process will already be complete. How long? Asked China's President Li Wei, her face impassive. From firing to total fleet erasure? 3 minutes and 47 seconds. We've run the simulation 6,000 times. The result is always the same. Total annihilation. No survivors, no debris. Just empty space where 200 warships used to be. President Hammond closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they were haunted. We're about to commit genocide. We need to acknowledge that. We're not just destroying ships. We're killing every living being aboard those vessels. Millions of sentient creatures who may have families, who may have been conscripted, who may not even support their empire's actions. Madame President, General Webb interjected, his voice hard. Those millions of sentient creatures came here to exterminate 7 billion human beings. They promised to turn our cities to glass. They've done this to 47 other civilizations. At some point, self-defense stops being murder and becomes survival. I know, General, Hammond said quietly. I know. But I want it on the record that I understand the moral weight of this decision. We're crossing a line today. We're revealing ourselves as a species capable of total warfare. The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again. Perhaps that's the point, said the Indian Prime Minister Rajesh Kapoor, speaking for the first time. Perhaps the galaxy needs to understand that Earth is not defenseless, that we will not be conquered, that threatening humanity comes with consequences. Sarah checked her chronometer. Madame President, the fleet is accelerating. They're moving ahead of schedule. New estimate. They'll cross lunar orbit in 6 hours, not the expected 12. We need to make the final decision now. Hammond looked at each leader on the screens. One by one, they nodded. Russia, China, the European Union, India, Brazil, Japan. Every nation that had contributed to Ghost Division's funding over the decades. Every government that had kept the secret. Dr. Chen, President Hammond said, her voice carrying the weight of history, you are authorized to proceed with silent protocol. Defend our world, and may God forgive us for what we're about to do. Sarah's expression didn't change. Acknowledged, Madame President. Initiating final targeting sequence. She turned to her command center, where 30 technicians sat at their stations, faces pale but determined. All stations, this is Director Chen. We are weapons-free. I repeat, weapons-free. Execute silent protocol on my mark. Supreme Commander Zarthok stood on the bridge of Eternal Dominion, his 3 eyes gleaming with anticipation. Before him, the blue-green jewel of Earth filled the view screen, beautiful and fragile. Soon it would be a blackened cinder. Status report, he commanded, his voice resonating through the bridge. Sub-Commander Krell, his second-in-command, consulted his tactical display. All vessels report ready status. Weapons charged. Bombardment patterns calculated. The primitive world has no orbital defenses, no energy shields. Nothing that could threaten even our smallest frigate. Their communications traffic? Zarthok asked. Panicked. Chaotic. They're evacuating their cities as ordered. Some are praying to their various deities. Others are rioting. Standard prey behavior. Krell's mandibles clicked in amusement. Supreme Commander, this may be the easiest conquest in Imperial history. They're not even attempting resistance. Zarthok nodded slowly. Good. Open a channel to all vessels. I want this broadcast throughout the Empire. Let every world see what happens to those who exist without Imperial permission. The communication officer worked his console. Channel opened, Supreme Commander. Broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies. Estimated audience 40 billion viewers across 300 worlds. Zarthok straightened, his iridescent scales catching the light. This was the moment he'd trained for his entire life. This was the moment his name would be immortalized. Citizens of the Vorthak Empire, he began, his voice carrying across light years. Today you witness the power of your dominion. Before you lies a primitive world, inhabited by creatures who call themselves humans. They possess crude technology, primitive weapons, no understanding of their place in the cosmic order. He gestured toward the view screen. In moments we will cleanse this system. We will demonstrate once again why the Vorthak Empire stands eternal, why resistance is futile, why, Supreme Commander, the sensor officer's voice cracked with sudden alarm. I'm detecting massive energy spikes. Multiple sources. They're coming from... The display exploded with warnings. Red icons materialized across the tactical screen, dozens of them, then hundreds, surrounding the fleet in a sphere of death. Report. Zarthok snarled. Unknown installations. They're everywhere. Lunar surface, Earth orbit, deep ocean, even in their asteroid belt. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. Supreme Commander, they're powering up. Krell stared at the tactical display in disbelief. That's impossible. Our intelligence showed no defensive capabilities. How could they hide this many installations? Raise shields, Zarthok commanded. All vessels, evasive maneuvers. Return fire on those energy sources. Shields aren't responding, the defensive systems officer shouted. Something's interfering with our... He never finished the sentence. The first wave of quantum disruptors fired simultaneously. 50 installations on the lunar surface, unleashing invisible beams that crossed the distance to the Vorthak fleet in microseconds. 50 Vorthak warships simply ceased to exist. No explosion. No fireball, no debris field. One moment they were there. Massive vessels bristling with weapons filled with thousands of crew members. The next moment there was only empty space, as if the ships had been deleted from reality by an angry god. On the bridge of Eternal Dominion, Zarthok watched his tactical display in horror as 50 icons vanished. What happened? Where did they go? I don't know, the sensor officer screamed. They're just gone. No energy signature, no residual radiation, nothing. They simply stopped existing. The second wave fired. 75 more ships dissolved into quantum foam. The Vorthak fleet, which had approached Earth with such confidence, was being erased ship by ship, faster than they could comprehend what was happening. All vessels retreat, Zarthok bellowed. Jump to hyperspace. Get us out of this system now! Krell worked his console frantically. Hyperspace drives won't engage. Something's disrupting the quantum field integrity. We're trapped. Then run, Zarthok ordered. Conventional drives.
Full thrust!
Get us away from those installations. The Eternal Dominion began to turn, its massive engines flaring to life. Around it, the surviving ships of the Vorthak fleet scattered in panic. All formation abandoned, all discipline forgotten. They ran like animals fleeing a forest fire, but they were already inside the kill box. The third wave fired. The fourth. The fifth. Each wave targeted with mathematical precision. Each disruptor beam invisible and unstoppable. Vorthak warships disintegrated by the dozens. Frigates, destroyers, battle cruisers, it made no difference. Size didn't matter. Armor didn't matter. Nothing mattered except the cold quantum physics that Sarah Chen's team had weaponized. Send a distress signal. Zarthok commanded, his three eyes wide with terror. Tell the Empire what happened here. Warn them about these humans. The communication officer's hands trembled over his console. Transmitting now, Supreme Commander. Warning sent. Message reads, Earth is not defenseless. Humans possess weapons beyond Imperial classification. Do not engage. Repeat, do not. The sixth wave fired. Eternal Dominion lasted longer than most, its massive hull and redundant systems buying it precious seconds. But seconds were all they bought. The quantum disruptors didn't care about resilience. They simply severed the bonds holding atoms together. And even the mightiest flagship in the Vorthak fleet couldn't survive having its molecular structure erased. Supreme Commander Zarthok had one final moment of clarity. One last instant where his mind processed what was happening. He understood in that frozen microsecond that his empire had made a catastrophic error, that humanity had been pretending, that they had walked into a trap designed by a species far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Then he ceased to exist. The bridge dissolved around him. His crew, his ship, his dreams of conquest all returned to quantum foam. In the space where eternal dominion had been, there was only emptiness and the faint shimmer of disrupted quantum fields settling back into equilibrium. The seventh wave fired. The eighth. The ninth. 3 minutes and 47 seconds after the first disruptor activated, the last Vorthak ship vanished. 200 warships carrying millions of crew members, representing the military might of an empire that had conquered 47 civilizations, all gone, erased, deleted from existence as thoroughly as if they had never been. Built in Ghost Division's command center, Sarah Chen watched the tactical display clear. Every red icon disappeared. The space around Earth was empty again, pristine, as if the Vorthak fleet had been nothing more than a nightmare that had finally ended. All stations, cease fire, she said quietly. Confirm all targets eliminated. Lieutenant Park checked his sensor logs, his hands still shaking. Confirmed, Director. 0 contacts remaining. 0 debris detected. 0 energy signatures. They're just gone. Sarah nodded slowly. Stand down to alert status. Keep the network online. Maintain sensor sweeps. If any other Vorthak vessels are in the system, I want to know immediately. Dr. Chen, Park said, his voice barely a whisper. We just killed millions of people. Maybe billions. In less than 4 minutes. Sarah turned to face him, her expression unreadable. No, Lieutenant. We defended our home. There's a difference. The Vorthak came here to commit genocide. They promised to exterminate every human being on Earth. They've done it before to 47 other civilizations. We simply made sure they couldn't do it to us. She walked to the main view screen where Earth hung serene and beautiful against the stars. War isn't about who's right, Lieutenant. It's about who's left, and today, humanity is left standing. 6 hours later, President Hammond addressed the world. The speech was broadcast on every channel, translated into every language, displayed on every screen that could receive it. My fellow human beings, she began, her voice steady despite the exhaustion in her eyes. Today, Earth was attacked by a hostile alien empire. The Vorthak came to our world with 200 warships, intending to exterminate our species as they have exterminated 47 others. They gave us an ultimatum, surrender or die. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. We chose a third option. For 40 years in secret, the greatest minds of our species have been preparing for this moment. We built a defense network that spanned our world and beyond. We developed weapons that could protect us from threats we hoped would never come. And when the Vorthak fleet crossed into our solar system with the intent to destroy us, we activated those defenses. The screen behind her showed footage of the empty space where the Vorthak fleet had been. The Vorthak armada no longer exists. Every ship, every weapon, every threat has been neutralized. Not a single human life was lost. Not a single city was damaged. Earth stands untouched. Hammond's expression hardened. But this victory comes with a message. Not just to the Vorthak Empire, but to every civilization in the galaxy. Humanity is not defenseless. We are not prey. We do not seek conflict, but we will not tolerate aggression. Any empire, any force, any entity that comes to our world with hostile intent will face the same fate as the Vorthak. She leaned forward, her eyes blazing with intensity. We are a young species. We have barely begun to explore the universe beyond our solar system. But we are not weak. We are not primitive. We are human beings, and we will defend our home with every resource at our disposal. Let that be known across the stars.